Hello and welcome to Tok Podcast. This is a podcast for human skills and mindset. Based on your all the encouragement, we are trying hard to get the guests which you would like to listen to, get encouragement because this podcast is all about how we can improve, evolve our skills, and as well as create a lateral mindset as well. Today, I am in discussion with Lea Misan. She is a psychotherapist. She is also an executive director at Act for Change, work in a couple of organizations, which we are going to delve deeper as well. And one of the things which really touched to my heart as well when I was going through at the preparation of the podcast was that she's so much passionate about childcare and try to make sure that every child on the planet Earth get the right treatment, get the right life, and a way of thinking and creating their own perspective. Lea, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. I'm very
That's
happy
great.
to be here and Let's Talk.
Oh, yes. My pleasure. So, Lea, if people do not know about you, if you would like to spend a few minutes about yourself and what you're passionate about or anything which you'd like to share to start with.
Thank you. So, Saurabh, as you said, I'm a psychotherapist, but I didn't start out that way. I started studying law and working in the city in banking before I found my true passion of working and connecting with people. I come from many places. I was born in Israel. I grew up in Switzerland and Canada before coming to the UK to study and then getting married here. And that has helped me a lot in terms of of getting to grips with different perspectives and being able to find different perspectives that I can hold for myself, first of all. About 15 years ago, I set up a charity called Act for Change, which helps young people and families who've experienced trauma to deal with that and to overcome those issues so that they can live to their full potential. And we do that work with young people and families, but increasingly also within communities because individuals can't be seen as atomic, isolated from their community.
Yeah, that's great. So as you mentioned that you've been to multiple places and you started as a law grad. Help us walk through when someone looks into your journey. I mean, it seems like you're so much into helping others. How that law degree helped you, or what exactly caused you to move from being a busy working professional to dedicating your life for a cause?
Oh, what a great question. I think there was a seminal moment. I was working at UBS, and I was in a structured finance team on which one of the transactions that came in was a management buyout of Tetley Tea. The tea company.
Yes, yeah.
And there were two individuals who wanted to do a management buyout, and for them to make a lot of money, a few millions for themselves, 1,000 people were going to lose their jobs. And I was doing the due diligence on that. So I saw how they were going to make their millions. And that didn't feel very good to me. And I was like, I don't really want to be working as part of the system that does that has the effect of making 1,000 people redundant. And so that was the beginning of that, of making that shift.
So when, obviously, that is something which resonated in terms of, okay, that doesn't look good. 1,000 people would lose a job. because of these reorganization, or as you mentioned that you were doing the due diligence from the legal side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly then did you try to contest those things, or you thought that, okay, let me just do something about it and start doing something parallel?
I didn't contest it because that's the deal in a structured finance team. That's what you're there for. But I responded positively when I was asked by my community to set up an outreach program for schools, and that was the beginning, right? So there was an unease I had with the work I was doing, and then there was an invitation from the world, if you like, to do something else, and I followed it.
That's great. So then you followed, and you try to set up the Act for Change. If you kind of give maybe a brief description about this organization, what's it all about, and
Yes.
what is maybe the history of this creation?
So Act for Change came out of this invitation by my community to do an outreach program for Holocaust Memorial Day. And so two communities, an Orthodox and a liberal Jewish community, working together, put on a week-long event of inviting young people from schools into the communities to speak with and hear from a survivor of the Holocaust. And I put together that program, and I put it together a bit differently from typical Holocaust memorial programs. And it had a somewhat different effect on the young people. And what the teachers that brought the young people were finding was that it developed empathy. And it was an interesting thing, that it developed empathy between the young people, not just this is what happened historically. And so the event was a success very early on, and it grew. And from 600 young people in the first year, we had 5,000 in year 3. And so we reached capacity very quickly. And then local authorities here in the UK were saying, in London, were saying we would like more of this. But the communities were at capacity. And so that was the point where I set up Act for Change. So at the outset, the premise of Act for Change was that we can develop. Sorry, I'm going to take that back.
Sure.
In Yad Vashem, in the museum in Israel, I heard at that time a talk by David Bankir, who was the head of the museum, the Holocaust Museum in Israel. And he was saying that leaders can only lead where people will follow. And in that talk that he gave, I was very emotional. I was crying most of that talk, because he was talking about the responsibility of leaders and how leaders followed in Germany the ambient culture, and therefore they didn't stand up against the Nazis. And so I thought, well, Act for Change is going to work on the empathy and the ability of people, ordinary people, in a way that changes the ambient culture. And from that, then leaders can lead, right? Because people will know where they want to be led to. And so that was the premise that on which I built Act for Change. The charity has evolved and grown and changed quite a lot, right? We don't put on events around Holocaust Memorial Day now. We work and develop the abilities, the skills, the mindset of young people, but also of the community around them and the families and and the practitioners that work with them, the teachers, the social workers, because these young people are part of the system that holds them.
That's intriguing. So let me ask you. I'm curious about when you mentioned that when you started this and you're trying to create at that time a Holocaust memorial, how you or maybe your team try to get to a point that we have to work with young people. I have seen some memorials wherein people try to gather mostly those people who were, I mean, obviously, if they are alive by now, if they were at that point in time, because they can share and then try to share their all emotions and then try to gather in solidarity. Uh, why young people? What was the thought process around that young people should be aware of these things, and then you would try to nurture them about what happened in the past and prepare for the future?
Right. So it was to get the lessons from the past for the future, right? So young people are the future. They're the ones that create it. And so what I shared with them in those events was the moments of hope and the moments that shows where people can do something different rather than just follow the thing that was already happening. So I didn't show the horrors of the Holocaust. I brought them survivors, and I brought them stories of rescue and of people standing up and making a difference in some way, however small, even if it's just for one person.
Yeah.
I think young people, my energies are with the young people because they are the future. And I believe that we can have a better future. We don't have to repeat it.
That's so true. Young people are future, and as you mentioned, that the survivors or those stories, mostly towards the limits of the human, the epitome, the way how they move from one place to another, and what exactly they have gone through. Not obviously the horror side of the house, but how exactly people become resilient and
Yes.
started their life from there, which is itself is an education for the kids. So at that point in time, like uh, how exactly the education works, if you would like to spend some time, like are you educating kids for being more resilient, or whatever it's happening in the society, try to stand by themselves,
Yeah.
or try to get into like should be having a certain aim in their life, be healthy? So what kind of education you give in these
Yes.
by having this example and then take
Yes.
it as a part? Yeah.
So let me just go back for a moment to the survivor as an example.
Yeah.
When the young people heard a survivor of the Holocaust, one of the things that they learned from that is the resilience, is about you can go through so much and come through the other end. Right. And all you need is the support of one person, really. Research tells us that it's only the support of one person and a positive outlook and an optimistic outlook that enables you to overcome and become resilient. And so the work that we do through counseling, mentoring, family therapy, group work, is focused on that, right? Of providing that support, that ongoing support to a young person, and giving them a way within a community, within a group, to give back some of the challenges that they're having, to know that it's not just them. It's not that they have a problem or they need fixing or that something bad happened to them and therefore it must be their fault, but that somehow as a society, we are all responsible in holding together uh, the pot for them.
Yeah, that's such a noble thought and the initiative which you guys are running, because I think the part which I like in this is you are not only teaching, I would say, to the kids about how to be a better human being, kindness, sharing, and all those stuff, but you're also giving them live examples of how people have done in the past, and maybe kind
Yeah.
of if their older generation or the people who were like part of the Holocaust survivors, they
Yeah.
can give them their own stories, because
Yes.
everyone likes stories, right? That's why the movies and all these things have such a big impact for each and every individual's life. But when you hear true stories, and I think personally, if I hear stories like this setup in a virtual, that itself gives so much impact. What happens if I have a face-to-face interactions as well? That
Yes.
gives a different level of a thought process and encouragement. So that's great, actually. First of all, I would say that thank you for all the initiatives that you're doing. That's so encouraging.
Thank you.
So now let's get into the other part about what are the other things which you are like from the kids' perspective. You mentioned about you are trying to build kids for the future in terms of domestic violence or child abuse. So
Mhm.
how you move or pivoted, or I would say maybe included as a part of your mission, from maybe educating people or educating
Mhm.
kids to get to that level of like how they can come out from these child abuse, which is, I
Mhm.
think, there across every section of society throughout the world.
Yes. So again, it started off with what I was doing around the Holocaust.
Hmm.
I realized that if I want to bring something more than looking at these roles that people have played in the past of perpetrator and victim,
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
rescue and bystander, that that come with a lot of judgment, that I needed certain skills and tools to do something differently with it. And so I started studying process work, process oriented psychology. And with that came an understanding that where there's abuse, there's a missing protector.
Mm.
There's also a bystander very often, but a bystander who is silent, maybe frozen or numb, maybe too afraid to speak up. But that bystander actually has the seeds of what is actually needed. We need to bring more of an observer role, an active observer role that can say, "Oh, stop! There's something wrong here. There's a misuse of power." And so that's what we're trying to develop in communities. That's what we're trying to develop in the young person, right? The ability to see in ourselves that the role of perpetrator and victim and protector are just roles. I'm not in one role or not in another. I can pick up any one of those at any time. And And so I can also pick up some of my power without going all the way in an excessive use of power. And I can express how I feel without just being in my feelings. Um,
That's so true. Yeah. So I think you just mentioned about the different roles, what we have in life. They are just roles, and each and every effect, there must be a cause, or there are multiple people involved, as you mentioned. And some people, as you mentioned, that maybe work as a bystander. If at that particular point they would have maybe made a one step, the things would be entirely different.
yes.
Which helped me to provide a beautiful segue to. I was reading to one of your article. I just write it down, the fallacy of two, how to weaken emotional connection of this or that.
Uh-huh.
And you mentioned that research shows that most of the decision making activity is unconscious, involving factors like our needs and beliefs. Deeper processes rules our decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to spend some time on that because as you mentioned that there are roles wherein people are bystanders. They cannot either make decisions to take a step forward and say, no, this is wrong, or this is not going the way it's supposed to be. What's your perspective on the decision making, and as a psychotherapist,
Mm-hmm.
when you say that it's unconscious, if you would like to elaborate that point?
Yeah. So when bad things happen to us, we get traumatized, like the kids that we work with. And from that place, when something happens, when we are witnessing something that happens, or something happens to us again, even if it's a small thing and it doesn't need to in itself trigger a big response, often there is a feeling memory of that thing that happened in the past. And then we get triggered into the response to that thing that happened in the past. And so if we are going to change how we respond, how we react, the decisions we make to not come from that trigger, we need to slow down that process. I often call, when we're triggered and then we go into the reaction, it's a bit like we go into a Jack in the Box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. And we need to slow it down so that we can say, oh, is it that feeling memory that's come back again? Or is it something that you said to me that is causing this response? And can I just hold that impulse to react and not react? And then we can have more freedom in making our decisions. The decisions that we have can be reflective decisions rather than reactive.
Yeah, that's so true. As you mentioned, that we have to start responding rather than reacting, and
Mm-hmm.
and one of the thing in decision making is also, as you rightly mentioned, about that it's all our needs or belief system. Uh, Somewhere I have, I would say, read through that whatever the decisions we make or whatever the perspective, it should be, I mean, from my perspective, it's right, but it's
Mm-hmm.
incomplete. So no one
Yes.
has a complete perspective. So yeah, you maybe, I mean, this is something which I'm trying to inculcate in my life. When I may not agree, or I would like to be respectful of their other person's perspective, is that your perspective would be right based on your experience and beliefs, but it may be
Mm-hmm.
incomplete. So
Yes.
that really helps in those scenarios. So now going towards the end part of our conversation here, what are your next steps? What you are looking for the future, and the listeners who are listening to this podcast, how do they kind of reach out? Any call of action from your side so that they can get connected, or if you need any kind of assistance, maybe locally, the people who are
Mm-hmm.
listening from the United Kingdom, for example,
Mm-hmm.
anything which you would like to share.
Thank you. So one of the areas that I'm very interested in developing further is ways of supporting communities to uh, to be there for each other and to grow the awareness and the muscle, if you like, of people who observe and see things happening, to do something about it or to speak up. And so I'm inviting communities to reach out, to connect with us, those communities who would like to strengthen the ability of their membership to pick up on the signals of some bad things that might be happening, or that could happen, right? When there's signals that something isn't quite right, right? Maybe something terrible hasn't happened, but something isn't quite right. And to get stronger in setting up the relationships that you need to change the ambient culture. So I'd like anyone who's interested in doing that work to reach out to us.
That's great. Do you have any website, or how exactly people can reach out? Which would be the social platform they can reach out to you?
So our website is www at actforchange.org.uk. Mm-hmm. And they can also reach us on Facebook on Act for Change UK. I also work as a psychotherapist with people in this area, and so I do a lot of work with internationals and global nomads because of the challenges that they have with fitting in and being able to hold the different perspectives that a different country and different culture brings to them.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'll put all the information of the website and the links on into the show notes so that people can reach out if they would like. And yeah, I think we had a very beautiful conversation, Lea. Thank you so much for providing this insight and the efforts which you're doing. I'll wish you and your whole organization a very best for the future endeavors. And I'm very sure the people would learn something about it and think deeply about if they are doing enough for this society. So that being said, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah.